Are you convinced by Tipperary after this performance? We've already talked about Clare and how we think, yeah, they're an improving side, and I can see a lot of reasons why they'd be feeling optimistic about the rest of the season. Qualifiers are going to be an absolute bear pit now. But Tipperary, what do you make of them, and how much have they learned about themselves?
I definitely wouldn't be convinced anyway, Shane. I said it earlier on the year that I didn't think they could start with probably Callan, the two McGraths, Bubbles, and Ford in the same forward line. They did. I'd be interested to see whether they start. I don't know if they can start with that same team against Limerick. I just don't know if they'll have the energy up front and the legs up front to do a lot of the dirty stuff maybe at the other end. They did work the ball really well in the second half. Fairness, like lots of turbulence in the first half, lots of things going wrong. The two matters were under pressure, particularly in that first quarter. Came thundered into it a bit more. The use of the ball in the second half was much better. Even Callan recycling ball out the field for that Alan Flynn score. The ball going in was generally going in, in around that 13-yard area as well when they could. You've talked about it before, about balls that have been sprayed out to the sideline and the forwards been left way too much work to do. Whereas the balls going in they were close, they were, within the ball stopper area. And when you're putting it inside that area there, you're giving yourself a chance. I do think they'll come on a good bit for that. They're obviously, I know we could say that they used the 3 weeks to rest and that was a good thing, but they are 3 weeks without a game as well, having had a bit of a non-performance against Waterford in their last league game as well. They're probably coming into the Limerick game in the perfect kind of scenario, are they? Like they're going to be big enough underdogs going into that game. No, there won't be too many people shouting from the rooftop that Tipper going to beat Tipper going to beat Limerick, and recent history would suggest that they're not going to beat them. But I think they would have learned a lot from yesterday. I think they'll have learned a lot from that league game where they played Limerick the first day out, where they kind of let them have the ball and then press them a bit higher. So I think that's going to be hugely interesting now. I think Tip probably got a good bit of dirty petrol out of the system in the first half. They obviously got a big call, but it's one thing. It's like in snooker when someone gets a kick or a foul or something like that. You take advantage of it. You show that ruthless streak. And in fairness, Tipperary killed the game off during that period when they should have.
Yeah, if I'm concerned, it's just being reactive, and I know that you like with Burr, with Offaly, with Wicklow, and your tragic stint there. I think there's no, but like you've definitely had team talks where you're saying beforehand, look, lads, we're going to set the tone here. We're not going to be reactive, and we're going to get scores on the board early. And Tipperary did get the first two here, but Clare completely took over, and it was kind of like a perfect storm. Like the Tipperary backline was under massive pressure, and we talked about how maybe there's too many corner forwards in this Tipperary attack line. I think that kind of came home to roost a little bit early on. The use of the ball wasn't perfect either. But Clare scored everything that they hit in the first 20 minutes. Like they scored 1-8 in a row without having a miss. Like that's absolutely unbelievable. So to me, it felt like the sky was falling down on Tipperary. But then there's the experience part of it and the calmness and the way that they were able to use that ball, and they actually just started getting amongst them, because being reactive, not being the team that's kind of setting the tone physically or taking on your man. Actually, and this is a thing now that bothers me going into the match against Limerick the next day out. They're stuck with the same team, which, look, Liam Sheedy is obviously, if what he's seen in training is that these are the best lads, then fair enough. There is an argument to be made that do you throw in some other lads that, that maybe they're not going as well as in training. Maybe Paddy Cadell isn't playing as well as Noel McGrath or whoever in training. But this is the sort of guy now, once he gets the experience of one or two championship games, he'll get confidence, belief from the manager, all that kind of stuff. He'll step up to the next level. But when Brendan Maher went down injured in the first half, there was actually Owen Connolly being called in. So I'm just surprised that Paddy Cadell, and I could be wrong on that, but that was what I had heard. I'm surprised that he has fallen down the pecking order, or even Robert Byrne. I know he got a red card, but even Brian McGrath. If Tipperary are going to lose this year, and I said this before, I'd rather it be with the likes of Paddy Cadell, Brian McGrath, and so on in the team, because at least that'll stand to you a little bit further down the line. But Tipperary have gone with some of the older players. They're absolutely brilliant players. I still would definitely start some of them, just maybe not all of them. But how many players on this Tipperary team can turn and beat their man? And against Limerick, you're going to need to be able to do that. And if you're not able to beat your man, it means that you're probably, do you have the pace to keep with the likes of Limerick when Keane Lynch turns at you, when Kyle Hayes turns at you, and Peter Casey and so on? There's obviously
I think you're a liability, Shane. I think you're potentially a liability against Limerick if you can't beat your man and you can't track him. So that's why I'm thinking, like, I don't think Tip will win this game without Paddy Cadell Alan Flynn, Dan McCormack and Michael Breen being hugely influential, because they're the guys that are going to cover massive ground.
Yeah. By the way, can we mention Seamus Callan, 37th championship goal? Like, he really has been unbelievable since first finding the net back in 2008. Incredible player, and like, some people were giving me jip about trying to have him in at number two in the rankings of top hurlers. I'd still have him there. I kind of accepted it because so many comments came in to have TJ Reid, who was unbelievable at the weekend as well. Like, he was absolutely brilliant in the sense of not necessarily like flowing with scores. He got 1-1. Obviously, Eibhear Quilligan made that glaring error for the goal. He got a nice point, but he set up a lot of scores. Like, ball was coming into him. And you want to talk about Barry Heffernan wrestling with Aaron Shanahan. Are you telling me that Conor Cleary didn't throw a saddle up on Seamus Callan's back for this match? I mean, come on, like, let's be serious about it. Let's be fair about it. This isn't Tipperary bias on this. And get the comments in as well. I thought he had a good performance considering what he was up against. Jake Morris grew into the game. Did you notice him doing the old throw the ball up in the one-handed smack?
Yeah, he did it last year as well. Yeah, just a quick one, Shane, as well. Someone had a short video up. I didn't obviously see the match live yesterday. I just watched it back. Just on Sheedy's management style. It was during one of the water breaks. He was over talking to Bubbles, and it was like a quiet word in his ear, coaxing him along. And then it was over to, I think it was to Jake Morris, and it was the same thing. Then it was over to Seamus Callan, and he just basically just gave him the fist into the chest like that. That's like, it's just clear. It's just a clear difference between how you deal with different players. And obviously Callan is the leader of that team. Sheedy wanted a bit more from him and demanded it from his captain, and he got it, in fairness.
Yeah, Donald Farrell says, Verney, the game in question was way back. It was Offaly against Laois. That's referring to the James Owen decision.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. Can't think of that offhand now.
Yeah, okay. Plenty more comments coming in. Actually, I was speaking to Derek Honan after the game. He was in there watching, obviously, former Clare hurler and All-Ireland winner and goal scorer in 2013. And he was talking about the massive changeover in this Clare team. A couple of years ago, Tip went down to Cusack Park, and was it 14 points that Tip won by? Absolutely pasted this team. John Conlon was obviously full forward that day and had a great season the year beforehand. Should have been nominated for Hurler of the Year without question, but obviously wasn't put into the shortlist. But I think 10 of the Clare team has changed, which is quite an incredible turnover. I'm sure Conor Cleary, John Conlon, Tony Kelly, not 100% sure, was it David Reedy? Maybe there's obviously a couple more there, but pretty much 10, whereas the vast majority of the Tipperary team remains. And this Tipperary team, it is that real problem of growing old together, but you can't come away from a game where you score 23 and act like it was all negative. Just a comment in from Donald Farrell, maybe not 6, but where are Peter Duggan, Podge Collins, Jamie Shannon, and Shane Murray, and the other Aaron Cunningham, obviously, in the full forward line? I'm all for Lohan, though. He has been wronged left, right, and centre. He probably does feel that above him he doesn't have the support that he wants. And then by referees in matches like this, that he's not quite getting the decisions.
Shane had a brilliant comment up that Lohan should have thrown on the red helmet and headed into the referee's room, a hurling hand.
Jesse James, Jesus, Shane, in a game where a penalty was given 31 yards from the goal, how could a ref not give what you call a 50-50 call for the opposing team? I suppose because he's interpreting rules, calling it as he sees it. I mean, I've tried to explain it, but everyone's got a different opinion.
Shane, just a quick one on the James Owens thing. I actually found that piece. I rang him when he was announced as referee for the 2015 All-Ireland final, and he just talked about I just said here, he stressed the importance of working efficiently as part of a team to ensure fair play during every game, and during Sunday week's final he will be hooked up to 8 officials via headset, something he feels he works well. These are direct quotes from James. It happens that I've made mistakes. This year I signalled for a penalty for Offaly against Laois, and I knew almost right away it was the wrong decision. Owen said, I consulted with my umpire who was right beside the incident and threw in the ball instead. That could have been a game changer because the game was in the melting pot. In Croke Park for a big game, all 8 officials can talk to you at any given time. So that helps make sure that the right decisions are made as much as possible. I think that's basically what the viewer was getting at. That a change in the decision could easily have been made if he wanted to make it.
Join the Our Game Supporters Club at Patreon for €5 per month to get audio podcasts of the Hurling and Football Show and much more exclusive material.